Good morning, Wallace Chang from METIS Real Estate. I'm here in Silicon Valley where the weather is stormy and raining, and I'm joined with Todd of METIS Northwest. And I believe you're at a Starbucks in Bellevue.
I am actually in Sammamish right up here. The wind is
Fantastic.
blowing here as well.
And what Todd is telling us is write it out. This is just a normal day up in Sammamish. So I guess I don't know where I'm going with that, but maybe if you're considering moving to Washington, Todd could prep you on how to do this. But more importantly, we're going to start off with what are some tips with dealing with this weather?
Um, we don't wear umbrellas in Washington, or we don't use umbrellas, excuse me. So have your Gore-Tex ready to go and wear multiple layers because you never know what's going to happen.
So it's just like San Francisco. If you're used to living in San Francisco, you're okay with this. Layer up, suit up, and be prepared. Uh,
Exactly.
Without further ado, I wanted to have a conversation with you about Q1 forecast. What are you seeing in your market? What are the most like strongest trends? Uh, you know, how's inventory looking like this time of year compared to years past? And how do seller and buyer sentiments feel like at the moment?
I think we're in definitely a different market than we were 8 months ago. Our inventory level has gone from a point 3 months of inventory up to about right around two, which is still a very decent market for both buyers and sellers. So um, we're really just looking at a changing of the market. Our inventory has come up, but if you have a good house to sell, um, it's gonna if you price it right and stage it correctly and have it all ready to go, it's gonna sell.
So location and pricing, of course, always trumps all, right? Right
Yes.
home, right location, and having it priced right. Are you noticing if it's priced too high? Is it sitting, or is it still procuring offers? Are you getting low balls, or what are the issues if it's priced high at the moment?
Most buyers can see when something is overpriced. It's pretty easy to see with all the access to the data that everybody has. So um, you may not even get showings if you have an overpriced home. So how do so you need to find that sweet spot that is going to bring in the offers. Um, so you're going to have to go through multiple price reductions. If you overprice, then you become kind of that piece on the shelf that maybe becomes dusty and nobody wants to do anything with it. And when they do come in on a house like that, they're going to come in with a low ball offer.
So if your pricing is really important at the moment, if it's priced high, you're probably going to have to prepare for multiple reductions because I think there's typically three ways of pricing a home. One, you price it artificially high, hoping you get a low ball, but still above your target price, or you price it fairly transparent, which is fairly what's recommended in this market, or you price it low in an effort to create a swell of offers and probably hitting your target or exceeding. But right now, what we're seeing is either the two at the end of the spectrum is fairly dangerous. One, you'll have to go through reductions. And as a property sits, people think there's something wrong with the home, even though there's probably not. And you run the danger of carrying costs while you're selling a home. And then when you price it low, you run the. We're not. Are you seeing a lot of multiple offers in the Northwest right now?
The last three transactions I have been in multiple offers. So we do still see that. Are they going, it's not 200 overpriced now. Maybe it's, 20 or 30,000, but there's still for certain properties, there's multiple buyers out there.
But are when you talk about multiple, where are you talking like two or thrhree? You're talking like 20.
Two or three in most. I did see seven on a piece of land that builders were after. They're still buying out there.
So and if you price it low, you run the odds of. So say if it's home for $1 million, we're target values at $1 million, and we're targeting, I don't know, anything over 1.05 is a win. We price it at 900,000. you're telling me if I price at 900,000, the market says the home is worth $1 million. I run the real odds of procuring offers at 920 to like 950 is what I could probably expect out of that pricing.
Correct. I mean, I think, and we don't want to really talk about pricing low because I don't, I think we need to see where the market is trending and then how do we get ahead of the market. So whether it's a market that is appreciating or a market that is depreciating or it's staying the same, we have to get in front of that. And that is the most important thing, whether that, and not looking at, do we go 100,000 low or do we go 100,000 high, but more of where is that market going?
Right. So how are you work with quite a few buyers and sellers at the moment. Can I ask how your sellers are feeling about this market and this particular time?
I think sellers are a little bit nervous just what's going on. And, um, the conversation that I have with them is, do you really need to sell? Um, are you ready for the pricing we're going to have to talk about? And are you willing to do what you need to do to get your house up to where it needs to be? I mean, I have a townhouse in the $700,000 range that I'm getting ready, but we had to do all new paint, we had to do all new carpet, we had to do uh, a lot of exterior work to get it ready to go.
So first impressions are going to matter from the photos to the prep to the showings. Everything needs to be kind of off the hitch and hit the market hard. We can't throw kind of fixer uppers and expect them to just fly off the shelf today.
And I think fixer uppers are great. And if somebody decides not to put in that, what they need to get it up to speed, then we need to adjust the price accordingly.
Super. So it's really you're really setting the expectations, and sellers just need to have proper expectations moving forward. How about your buyers?
Correct.
Are they optimistic? Are they nervous as well? What's the sentiment from your buyer clientele at the moment?
I think the benefit of a buyer right now is that you're most likely going to have a little bit more time to make that decision. So previously, get out there, look at the house for 45 minutes, and write an offer now. Where most likely you're going to have a few days, and maybe longer than that. You may get in a multiple offer, but you just have to be prepared. But really, buyers can step back for a minute and say, is this the house I want? What is the pricing we want to come in at? And that's a benefit for the buyers rate.
Uh, Super. So what are your buyers looking for right now, and what does your average buyer look like?
Our average buyer right now is probably somewhere between 700 and 1,500,000. Um, they have very nice income, coming maybe from the tech industry or own a business or whatever that looks like. Um, and they, they're looking for somewhere where they can live and be um, closer to where they work, so they can, if depending, what their scenario is now. But I'm seeing more buyers that are having to go back to the office maybe 2 or 3 days a week. So, and they need to be a little closer than maybe they thought they did before. You can't move out to Idaho and get back to 2 or 3 days a week easily. So,
Right. We talked about seller sentiment, buyer sentiment. What's the tone in the office? How about you and your agent? What are you guys expecting in Q1, and what are you doing to prepare for Q1 and say Q2?
we really just want to have conversations with all of our clients, all of our sphere of influence, to really just have a conversation with them about realistically what's going on in the market. The sky is not falling by any means. So, how do we uh, convey that to all of our clients so they know and they can make good decisions based on that? And I'm telling my agents, just be out there talking to people. You might have to create a few more, you might have to have more conversations to do the same amount of business you did in the last 2 years.
So you being in the market and you've seen the market go up and down and grow and expand through these years, going from, a junior agent to brokerage owner and team leader, what are the opportunities in this market in Q1 right now?
I think if you can get out there and find the business as an agent, you're going to do great. But you're going to have to go look for it, and you're going to have to create more opportunities. As a buyer, there are more houses, and there's going to townhouses. They're going to come on the market. I think we're going to see more. You're going to have opportunities there for some um, contingencies, whatever that looks like, just more opportunities.
And anything else you wanted to tell your audience about METIS Northwest or the general Seattle Bellevue market? What do you see and what do you expect in the next, say, 60 to 90 days?
You know, it, it's always hard to tell, Wallace, kind of where everything is going to trend, but I think we'll continue um, to kind of maintain the market we're in. We may have, will probably be a pretty level market all year without much appreciation on our houses. I don't really see a lot of appreciation, but you never know. So I would say if you're if you have a reason to make a move, let's talk because we can make it happen for you. And in a pretty painless, even though pretty painless um, time here, then, so the sky is not falling. I'll just say that again.
Yeah, I think you talk to any real estate economics outside the news, you realize, hey, the market is adjusting, the sky's not falling. Also, when the news says uh, prices are coming down, record low sales, you can manipulate stats and numbers however you want. But the fact is, compared to the market like 6 months ago, where you have hundreds or thousands of properties transacting. We only have a handful of properties that are transacting, and the inventory simply is not there. And then, of course, you're going to have some. Right now, if you have a crazy low sell or high sell, it skews the entire database and it skews the average. Versus, if you had those same numbers and those same reports in June and July, it's part of more of a mashup because there's thousands of transactions per month rather than right now. I don't even know if you have 100.
What it, what I've said to buyers, and I just thought of this, is really what happens in a market like this. I've been in the business for 26 or 27 years now. Is we come out of it a lot quicker than you would ever think, and all of a sudden we're multiple offers on all the properties, and it just happens so quickly before anybody notices, and you miss that opportunity to get, maybe to get a little bit better deal on a house.
Yeah, I think one of our lenders was talking to one of our buyers down here, and he said something. Hey, man, marry the house, meaning you're going to walk in those doors and you're going to get in that threshold and you're going to fall in love with that property. Let's do everything to get you that property. I know the down payment, I know the rate, I know the financing. None of this is ideal, but the property is. So marry the house, and then we're going to date the rate. And what he meant by that is we're going to get you in, and yeah, the interest rate is at 6%. I think was the last one we were talking about. But I'm going to keep your file at the top of my computer. We're going to review, and then as soon as when rates come down and they make sense to refi, I'm going to call you. We're going to refi, and we're going to continue to leverage you down. Um, but otherwise, do the math, figure it out, and then get that done. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think rates will always change, and they might not go down to 2.5% again, but we'll see probably some rate reduction, hopefully by third quarter, maybe fourth quarter this year, possibly. I mean, I can't tell what the Fed's going to do, but that seems to be the sentiment at this point. So get in there, and if you really need a house,
Right.
happy to help you here.
We'll go to the lender to talk more about that another episode. But I wanted to talk about deal structure with you. So when you're structuring a deal to purchase, are you we're used to waiving all contingencies for a while. Are you guys still waiving all contingencies in Washington, or contingencies are coming back?
You know what? It all depends, right? So, really, if I was working on that builder deal where we had 7 offers and I knew those offers were coming in after conversations with the other agent, I recommended to my client, remove all your contingencies. More typical in this market, we're able to get an inspection contingency, a financing contingency, a title contingency, all those things. So we just have a little bit more time and you're not all in with your earnest money. You can actually make sure the house, you can know what is going on with the house, if there's any major issues we need to deal with. And we might even be able to ask the seller, hey, why don't you repair this prior to closing? Let's make it a win-win here.
So I'm going to go back to that, but let's say we're talking to a bunch of Californians who are thinking about moving up to Washington. What's typical for earnest there? Is it a percentage or is it a specific amount? And then also, are you seeing most buyers putting 20% down, more or less?
The majority of buyers are putting 20% down. I would say uh, the way the stock market has trended this year, people are taking less money out of their out of the market. So 20% is usually a pretty good down payment. Though some buyers can get down to 10% and even less if that's the situation. We have lenders that will help them in with any scenario, whether they want to pay cash or put 3% down. There's a way to do that for sure.
So, and I wanted to go back to your answer on contingencies because we're so used to non-contingent offers here in Silicon Valley. It's been the norm for, gosh, like 15 years. And we realize in traditional real estate, you never advise waiving contingencies. So Washington's more kind of a normal market in terms of offer structure. But when you say we're going to get inspection contingency, we're going to get a loan contingency, we're going to get so and so, how does that affect the process, the escrow process?
Well, I think it definitely is not. Um, if there's an inspection contingency, that's a whole new negotiation. So, and a buyer can decide they don't want to buy the house if they have that inspection contingency and walk away without any ramifications. They get their earnest money back and they're good. Their financing contingency, if someone isn't fully approved and underwritten, I mean, that's where we like our buyers to be. But if there were some challenges along the way, and they lost their job, they went through a divorce, something happened during that time, they would be able to get out of that with their earnest money back. So I think it just creates a little more ease of mind than we've had before for a buyer, not so much for a seller. It's going to be a little bit more of a process, and you have to let your sellers and create great expectations for them that we're not sure if this buyer is going to go move all the way through this.
So it's really like mini insurance policies throughout the transaction, and in doing so, I believe it creates like a better transaction, almost to say, because you lengthen out the time, and then you give both parties, well, one, if you're the seller, you're kind of locked into it. As long as buyers meet the contingencies and go through the gates, they get to own the home. But as a buyer, really protected, just like when you buy a used car, there's something called a PPI, a pre-purchase inspection. And even though the car looks great, the car has just been detailed, paint is shiny, interior smells clean, but you have a mechanic go through it and say, hey, Wallace, this motor eats oil, or like the battery's not charging, or like the tire is wearing uneven. And you give the seller a chance to fix those things, remedy those things, or I can continue. If the seller doesn't want to do any of that, I could say, you know what, I'm still going to buy it, and I could put on a new fresh set of tires, and I could do the oil change, or I could do so on. But I know what I'm getting into. And I think in those scenarios, it's actually a healthier market. It kind of protects all parties. Both parties know what they're kind of getting out of it. And it also unfortunately makes you work a little bit harder because you have to manage every piece and then you have to properly negotiate each segment. Is that correct?
Yes, but I like negotiating. That's my
Right.
one of my favorite parts of the job. So I don't mind to do that. I think our market trends in different ways, and you're if there's multiple offers, you're dealing with different negotiations than you are if they're building inspections and all those contingencies. And you also ask about earnest money. We're typically between 1% and 3% here in a standard market. So um, but if you want to make a seller feel more comfortable with your offer, you're going to go a little bit higher earnest money. But it all depends on your cash situation, and but we can work with it.
So what I'm hearing, the strongest offers, the offers that you advise most of your sellers in accepting, they're going to come in still at 20% down with a 3% earnest. And then obviously if I'm representing the seller, I want as little contingencies as possible. But my understanding is there's some contingencies that are normal in the Washington market and some that are not. So can you just walk me through really quick if you're representing me as a seller and we have a pretty strong offer, 20% down, 3% earnest, uh, but there's what contingencies are okay and what's excessive?
They're going to have probably they're going to have an inspection contingency. That's our biggest one. That's going to be between maybe 3 and 7 days. They have to get out, and a buyer can go through the house with their inspector, do the inspection, and then they get back to the seller with either we want to ask for some repairs to be done by the seller, or do we want to ask for some cash back because of those repairs so we can do them themselves, or you could walk away at that point, right? So there's a whole new negotiation. The financing contingency is really number two. And that's as you're going through your loan, we need to make sure everything's good with your loan. And if for some reason something happens with your loan during that contingency, there may be a way to get out of that and get your earnest money back. We have a few other contingencies, a title contingency, which is just reviewing the title. Typically, agents have that up front, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Those are really your three major contingencies.
Super. Yeah, I really like the financial contingency, especially those who are putting kind of it all on the line and really kind of shaking their couch cushions for the last pennies to make that work. It's really a shame to lose that earnest or getting any other financial difficulty if financing doesn't come through. And then the inspection is just great because you kind of know where you're getting. But since I am your seller, would you recommend, Wallace make those fixes, or we just rebate cash back to the
It
buyer?
really depends on the situation. If we have a quicker closing, maybe we give some money back, some cash back. If we have a longer closing, you know, then maybe we do the repairs depending if you have the right contractors, you have the time. Really, the biggest thing is buyers always think things are going to cost about 2 times the amount, where sellers think it's going to cost a little bit less. So if you're able to get those repairs done as a seller in a commercially reasonable manner, and then have an inspection to make sure those items are good, you could probably do it a little bit for less money than the buyer would ask for.
Well, that's also where your expertise and your vendor network comes into place, right? If I needed a contractor or handyman or any repairs in Bellevue, you're the first person I'm calling because you've worked with them all.
Yes, very true.
Well, Todd, I want to thank you for this morning. You've been super informative. Is there anything you want to leave our audience or your audience with a message regarding Q1?
I would say again, the sky is not falling. I think we're in a market where you can either buy or sell a home. It's different, no doubt, than it was a couple of years ago. But come talk to me, and we can really talk about how we can make that process work for you in the least painful manner. And there's still a lot of transactions going on out there.
So you heard it from the man. Just because real estate is uncertain and it's more of a normal market at the moment, it's not sleeping. It's still going. There are still people buying. There's still people selling. And if you find yourself in either scenario, Todd's your guy. He's, he would love to talk with you. So talk with Todd, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Wallace.